Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Jerome III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.
All right. Well, this is another night of the Impact of Educational Leadership, episode 25. I'm your host, ID3 for Isaiah Jerome III. Our panelist tonight is Nancy Rodriguez. Now, Nancy Rodriguez, she grew up in the working class family in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York City, New York. Her parents, who came to New York from Puerto Rico, understand the value of education and made sure that she received a good one. Nancy attended her neighborhood school, then Fordham University, where she graduated with a bachelor's in psychology. And finally, Hunter College, CUNY, for a master's of social work. She has worked for foster care agencies, a social service agency, the New York Legal Aid Society, Dallas ISD, and a children's health plan. Nancy has spent hundreds of hours helping dozens of families navigate Dallas Independent School District's special education and disability services system, and has attended countless ARD and school conferences to advocate for special education students. She has addressed the Dallas ISD School Board and lobbied its members on multiple occasions, advocating for policies that protect kids at school and ensure that every student receives a free, appropriate public education. She is married to attorney Barry Jacobs, and they live in the Lakewood neighborhood of Dallas with their two children. Mrs. Nancy Rodriguez, please say hello to the people.
Hello, and thanks for having me on this program. I'm excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you here as well. Well, tonight's topic is, what is your vision for education in Dallas ISD? To be an educator that influences the lives of countless students in positive ways, they must be willing to be exposed and willing to grow, increasing their capacity. Their passion to do the best for the student is in the focus of their vision. And they realize by doing a prodigious job with the small things, great things happen. In society's quest for instant gratification, patience is sometimes something we as educators essentially need to have to make great things become a reality. It is a key element in being able to reflect on the progress being made, identifying potential trends, and begin to strategically plan for the future. It opens the door to a long-term vision of what something could look like when we work together. Well, tonight we have here Nancy Rodriguez. And Nancy, I want to ask you some questions as it relates to the Dallas ISD. My first question for you, and take your time. What motivates you to want to become a school board member, trustee?
Sure. So one of the things that motivates and drives me are the kids that I see in my line of work as a social worker, and my desire for them that not just them, but that every child in the school district get a good education, that they have access to a quality education, that they are taken into consideration, and that regardless of where they live or what school they attend, that every child's educational needs be met. And as a board member, I really want to see accountability, transparency, and a school district that's responsive. And that's really what's making me want to run, is to have those qualities in our school district, and for the school district to really be responsive to the needs of the community that it serves. And like I said, and that's regardless of race, that's regardless of religion, of what zip code they live in, what school they attend. Every child in DISD should have a quality education.
I love that response, because quality education shouldn't hold on the fringe of the different environments that could affect this child's education. Go ahead, I'm listening.
The reality is that there exists a lot of disparities in our school district, right? And not all schools are equal. Not all schools are funded equally either. Some schools receive more resources and supports than others, and it's really unfortunate. We want to elevate the campuses so that everybody's performing on a level playing field, and they have what they need to learn at every campus. I see it with my clients that have special needs. Many times it's very difficult for them to access services from the school district, and we could do a better job of providing an education to those kids that learn differently. But just making sure that everything is fair and equitable for our students.
Yeah, I like that, because we need to build relationships that empower students, especially in low-income communities, and then also, like you said, level the playing field to where you're not dinged because your program is getting participation for this community-based program in a certain area or a certain demographic that's not highly respected. So I like that you want to come in and you want to start focusing on balancing out the system or tweaking out some things. Let me ask you another question. What attributes are essential for successful school board trustee members to have?
I think a school board member should be really responsive to the needs of the community. So you want a school board member who listens to the community, that engages the community, makes an attempt to really understand what's going on, and somebody that has patience, somebody that works well with different types of people, and somebody with honesty and integrity. That's really needed. I think that, the school board and the superintendent, they set the tone for the rest of the district. So we need to have strong leaders, and leaders that operate with integrity and that always have the best interests of our kids forefront in their minds and are willing to put our kids first.
Well, you said the first thing I thought about was, how do we attract quality individuals to the teaching profession? Because seemingly we are continuing to be one of the most difficult school districts, by and large, to kind of target stable salaries. So we need to improve these salaries. We need to improve the payments for these health benefits that we're getting, and we need to improve the understanding of the loan forgiveness program, meaning that we have to start focusing on how we're going to attract these teachers to these high-risk areas, these low SES areas, and guarantee them student loan forgiveness with those programs. They're showing them how to navigate through the system to get that. That's going to greatly increase the retention and attrition, and it's going to also promote quality teachers coming into the district. That's my thoughts. And this will help with the hiring incentives that is attractive and is necessary to get the best and the brightest in the field of education, especially, like I said, in these, I'm going to say it like this, these poor and rural districts, because particularly they have a hard time finding those different cadre or instructors or educators to come into these rural areas to give a modernized teaching approach, because we need, of course, equipment and teaching aids to make this happen and to make the kids motivated to come to school each and every day, because we know that for some kids, school can be tedious. Let me ask you another question. I like their response.
Yeah.
So Nancy Rodriguez, we're talking about what is your vision for education in Dallas ISD. So what do you see as the board's roles and responsibilities?
Well, there's the standard roles and responsibilities of the board is, one is that they hire and fire the superintendent, right? So they provide guidance and supervision to the superintendent. They approve the budget, and they set board policies. When you're setting board policies, you really should be looking at policies that promote learning and improve student outcomes, and policies that also promote transparency and accountability in our district. I think also a school board trustee also has a fiduciary responsibility in making sure that our tax dollars are being wisely spent, and that we are accountable also to the taxpayers in terms of funding and what can be done with that money. And especially now that we have this upcoming bond that's going to be almost $4 billion, right? $3.7 billion that they're getting ready to ask the taxpayers for. So we really need trustees to be accountable. And lastly, I think the role of a trustee is also to reach out to the community and figure out what vision does the community have for the school district. I don't think it's something that the trustees decide on their own, or that the superintendent decides on his own. It's really listening to the community and saying, what do we want the vision for our district to be moving forward?
So Nancy, Ms. Rodriguez, excuse me, do you have sufficient time and energy to devote to this position? Because with this type of position, you're constantly working with your fellow local trustees to determine how your school board stands on these action items. These are action items that you are referring to. So what is tell us about what kind of time can you devote, what kind of energy can you devote to this endeavor?
Well, I would be devoting quite a bit of time, and actually my full-time job will be going away in September. So I will have quite a bit of time to devote to the school board, this is something that really matters to me, and that's so important to me. I would make the time to ensure that I'm a good school board trustee, and that I'm dedicating myself to the community and the kids that we're hoping to make the schools better for. So it is a lot of time and a lot of energy that's required, but I feel that I'm up to it, and I am. Anyone that knows me knows that I work hard, and I managed to get a lot done, considering all the responsibilities that I have. I've always been that way. I've always had a really strong work ethic, so I think that would really, in a position like this, that would really help me, and I think it suits my personality, because I've always done multiple things at once. I'm a multitasker. I have very different interests, and I like to explore those interests, and I've just always been a super hard worker.
I want to read something to you before I ask you this next question. Recently I was doing some research on the TASB Association. Now, TASB has these cornerstone principles. But these principles are very key to making the public education system happy, or making it work cohesively with the structure that they have. And so the first one is to ensure excellence in student achievement for all Texas students. And number 2 is locally elected trustees are locally governed and controlled. They govern and control public schools. They have rigorous accountability for academic progress. Number 4, adequate and equitable funding levels to provide an exceptional education. The next one is efficient and effective school management. The next one is strong family and community engagement to create optimal opportunities for each child. And the last one is this: fulfillment of public schools' unique constitutional duty to educate every child by preventing the diversion of public school funds through vouchers, tax credits, education saving grants, and other mechanisms. So with that being said, let me ask you this question here. How would you handle these types of requests if approached by an individual or special interest group, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think with that you have to be kind of careful, right? Whenever you're dealing with a special interest group or an individual that maybe has their own agenda, and really trying to stay within the role of a trustee and not an advocate, which maybe sometimes it can be hard to do because you may feel, they may bring a cause to you that you feel strongly about, but just remembering that you're a trustee and your responsibilities as a trustee. Now, part of being a trustee is ensuring outcomes, good academic outcomes for our students. And, if it's something, I guess, that I don't really agree with, then, we can have a conversation about that. But in terms of special interest groups, that just makes me a little nervous because I don't want to feel beholden to anyone, and I don't want anyone to think that that I can be, convinced, let's say, to do something that's maybe not in the best interest of the students of the school district, and just trying to stay within my role as a trustee and trying to look at what's best academically for our kids. And if it aligns with a special interest group, that's great. And if it doesn't, then I'm not just going to be on board with that. We have to look at how this is going to affect our kids, and is this putting our kids first, and is it advancing their academic career? So I think looking at that, and also what does the community want? I think when you kind of look at it through that lens and making sure that we're following the mission of the ISD, which is educating all students for success, then if it's in line with our mission, then maybe it's something that we can work on together. And then if it's not, then I think we just have to, listen politely, but, part ways.
Nancy, I love your passion. I love your passion, and I can tell just in your responses how much you're willing to work to make this thing happen. And I like that. I really like it. I like how you are looking for accountability, and to get it, you're willing to reach out to the community and start asking questions, start visiting the different schools. By the way, TASB stands for Texas Association of School Board Trustees. And because your background as a social worker, you kind of already know how to navigate the system, the process, how to be patient, how to wait. If they're saying no or not yet, you know how to keep and asking those different questions to kind of open those doors so you can get things done, because this is like you pointed out earlier, a tedious process that has to be met, especially for our special needs kids. Not a lot of attention is being, and you can talk about that, but not a lot of attention is being focused on our special needs kids. What have you experienced? If you have any stories to tell, what is one of your most devastating stories to tell that you've seen or experienced with special need children, if you would like to shed light on that? If not, we can move on.
I would say one of the big issues is that many kids are not identified, right? So kids that need additional support or are really struggling to learn, I have had numerous parents tell me that they've gone to the school to say, look, I think there's something wrong with my child. He's having a hard time learning, or he's not getting this, or he can't read. They're asking, for help from the school, and a lot of times the school will tell them to wait, or the parents will ask for an evaluation, and the school, it falls through the cracks, and the child doesn't get evaluated. Well, every year that goes by that child is not evaluated, they don't get that year back, and that could be a year that was spent providing support and to that child if he would have had the evaluation when the parent requested it, right? So making sure that we're identifying the students that are struggling, because when we don't identify them and they continue to struggle year after year, then they get to a point where school becomes really hard because they're so far behind, and then they don't like school, and because they're not successful at it, and it becomes a misery for them. They go to school and they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel like they're learning, they may not feel accepted, and really I think that also contributes to our dropout rate. And then when you look at the school to prison pipeline, many people that are in jail and prison have learning disabilities. It's a really high percentage. It's like over 80%. And many of those people didn't get the help and support that they need. So we don't want that to happen to our kids, right? We want to identify them early. We want to give them the support so that they can learn, and so that learning continues to be a joyful experience for them. And these are skills that they're going to need for their lifetime, so it's not okay to ignore it.
I really like that. You made me think about engaging more diagnosticians to go in there and diagnose properly. Hey, if this kid has, if you want to share it on there, you can. But if this kid, is showing the these characteristics are emerging from their core values, their pro-social behaviors, their disposition, mainly because of their disposition. I'm seeing these different traits that's pointing to or is linked to maybe, let's go and get a diagnostician so they can go in and tell us, get a professional in, so they can go and do a proper evaluation to see if this kid needs special needs. And that's what special needs pretty much is. Do me a favor, do us a favor, those that's listening, kind of give your brief description or definition of what special needs is to you.
So I can tell you kind of what the law says. So we have our special needs kids fall in two categories. They fall under Section 504, which those are kids that have a disability and they need accommodations. So they can be in the general education environment, but they just need an accommodation. So let's say I'll use my son. I have a son that's a type 1 diabetic, and his accommodations were things like he could eat a snack in class, because when his blood sugar was going down, he needed to be able to eat something, right, to bring it back up. And also being able to use the restroom more frequently, and being able to make up time on a test. If he was taking a test and his blood sugar was out of whack and he needed to go see the nurse, then when he went to see the nurse and he came back, he needed to be able to make up that time that he missed, right, on the test. And they also shouldn't be testing him when his blood sugar is out of range. For a child with ADD, it may be being able to go, being able to move around the classroom, or being able to take more frequent breaks, right, because they have a harder time kind of focusing and sitting still. So when we look at kids with disabilities under Section 504, we're looking at ways that we can accommodate the general education learning environment so that child can remain in general education. Now, when we look at kids in special education, we're looking at specific kind of diagnoses that qualify a child for special education. And then sometimes you can have diagnoses that they fall under 504 and special education, like dyslexia, ADHD, autism. It depends on the severity of the child's condition. If it's really affecting him to the point where it's really interfering with his learning and he cannot be in a general kind of education setting, then maybe that child needs an evaluation for special education services. And there's a list of 13, I believe it's 13 diagnoses that the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act lists for kids that need, that will qualify for special education. So there's different categories under IDEA. And it could be a specific learning disability, other health impairment like ADHD. It could be autism, emotional disturbance, speech or language impairment, visual impairment, deafness, hearing impairment, deaf blindness, orthopedic impairment, intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury, or a child that has multiple disabilities. So that's what would categorize a child for special education versus a 504 accommodation. So really, anything that is going to affect the child's ability to learn in the classroom environment and require either a accommodation or support through special education.
For those that are just now chiming in, we are talking about what is your vision, Mrs. Nancy Rodriguez, for the Education Trustee Board of Dallas ISD. And Nancy, thank you so much. Your knowledge is so in depth as it relates to these special needs process and how the different diagnoses of this special needs. I really want to kind of pull from you this, because I hear your passion. And with passion like that, that you have, because it's strong, okay? It's very strong. And so now with that kind of passion, so I'm going to say it like this: how do you balance concession, sitting on the school board with different people coming from different backgrounds that think differently, that were raised differently, versus that passion? And how can you, and let me go ahead and form this into a question. I'm going to formulate this into a question. So how can you, or how should you, support a board's decision that you were not in favor of, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, one of the things being on the board is that you really have to be able to collaborate with the other trustees, right? And when you're one of 9 trustees, there are going to be trustees that obviously want things for their district, and maybe trustees that disagree with you about what they think would be in the best interest of the students. I'm willing to listen to all sides. I may feel strongly about something, but I also am willing to have a dialogue with anyone about it. So really kind of listening to the other trustees, trying to understand their position, and really looking to see how can I support them in their work too, because the only way we're kind of going to get ahead and move together as a district and for our kids is really collaborating with one another and figuring out ways that I can help other trustees. And it's not just about ways that they're going to help me, right? I mean, it's kind of a give and take, And, there may be a decision that I may not be in favor of initially, but if somebody kind of explains to me why they've taken the position that they've taken, and it seems like a valid position, I'm willing to evaluate my position on something and possibly support them. It just kind of depends on what the conversation is, what the dialogue is around that, what points they make that, I may they may show me another side that I hadn't even considered, and then I may come around to seeing things from their perspective. I think one of the things that, and also as a social worker, is that I really try to be open-minded and non-judgmental. So assuming that everybody is coming with positive intentions, right? And we're all working together to help the kids of this district. So it may be a decision that initially I didn't think I was going to support, but I may wind up supporting it. It just kind of depends on the dialogue that we have around it.
And we are out of time. Listen, Miss Nancy Rodriguez, I really want to thank you again for tonight. Do you have any takeaways? Absolutely. Do you have any takeaways from tonight?
I think that you asked some really great questions about what it would be like to be a trustee. And I think it's anybody that's thinking of running for office should really think hard, especially if you're thinking of running for school board, should really think hard about some of the questions that you ask, because it is not you're not just representing your trustee district. You are working with a group of 8 other trustees, and you're really looking to carry out the mission of the district, which is educating all students for success, right? Not just the students in District 2 or District 6 or District 8, right? So you really asked some great questions and got me thinking about how I could collaborate with other folks to move the needle for all our kids, not just the kids in my trustee district.
Absolutely. Tonight was another night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This was episode 25. Thank you so much for joining us, and good night.
Good night.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.